My beloved child. Stop scrolling for just a moment. There are messages that arrive because of coincidence, and then there are messages that seem to find a heart at the exact moment it is ready to hear them. If these words have reached your eyes today, do not rush away. Something has been quietly unfolding beyond what you have been able to see. Heaven has watched every silent tear, every unanswered question, every night you wondered why certain words never came. There is a reason this message has found you now, and before this moment passes, something hidden will begin to make sense. You have been wondering whether someone truly carries love for you in the deepest part of their soul. You have questioned their silence. You have mistaken distance for indifference, hesitation for rejection, and quietness for the absence of feeling. But my child, appearances often disguise the battles taking place inside another person's heart. What seems like coldness from a distance can sometimes be the loudest cry that no one else is able to hear. Listen carefully, because what I am about to reveal is not meant to create fear but understanding. There is someone whose heart whispers your name more often than you realize. They have imagined saying 3 simple words countless times. They have rehearsed conversations that never happened. They have stood on the edge of confession, only to let the moment slip away once again. Every time courage begins to rise within them, something invisible reaches into their thoughts and convinces them to remain silent for one more day. Do not look away now. Something important is still waiting to be uncovered. This silence has made you question yourself. Perhaps you wondered whether you were enough. Perhaps you searched for flaws that never existed. Maybe you even convinced yourself that if they truly cared, they would have spoken already. But heaven sees a picture that you cannot yet see. Love does not always fail because it is weak. Sometimes it struggles because old wounds continue speaking louder than new hope. The one connected to this message carries memories that they rarely reveal. Long before they crossed paths with you, disappointment taught them to hide their deepest emotions. They learned that opening their heart could invite pain. Promises were broken. Trust became fragile. Smiles concealed disappointment. Little by little, they built invisible walls around emotions they once shared so freely. Those walls became so familiar that even they forgot how high they had become. Yet then you appeared. Without realizing it, you began changing something inside them. Your presence disturbed the quiet prison they had accepted as permanent. They laughed more than before. Certain songs suddenly carried new meaning. Ordinary days became brighter without explanation. Even moments of silence began reminding them of you. They tried to ignore these changes, but the heart has a language that the mind cannot permanently silence. Pause here for another moment, because the next truth explains far more than you expected. Many believe the greatest obstacle to love is the lack of feelings. They are mistaken. Often the greatest obstacle is believing that love might not be returned. This person has wondered countless times whether speaking those words would change everything forever. They fear hearing silence where they hoped for joy. They fear misunderstanding your heart. They fear becoming vulnerable after spending so much of life pretending to be strong. Each day they almost reach out. Each day they stop. You have interpreted that pause as uncertainty, but heaven has witnessed something entirely different. Every unsent message, every deleted sentence, every interrupted phone call, every moment their finger hovered above the send button has carried your name. You never saw those moments. Only heaven did. There have been evenings when they looked toward the sky and quietly asked for a sign. They never admitted it to anyone. They simply hoped that somehow the distance between your hearts would shrink without requiring them to risk everything first. They wished that destiny itself would speak before they had to. And now you are hearing this message. Not because your future is already written. Not because every outcome is guaranteed. But because hope has been moving in places where your eyes could never reach. Something extraordinary is still unfolding. Have you noticed how certain memories refuse to disappear? Certain conversations replay again and again for reasons you cannot explain. Certain names unexpectedly enter your thoughts while you are busy doing something completely unrelated. These moments are not always random. Sometimes they simply reveal that two stories have not completely finished crossing paths. Your loved one has been carrying a question that grows heavier every passing day. What if I wait too long? They never say it aloud. Instead, they hide behind ordinary conversations. They speak about unimportant things while the real words remain trapped behind trembling silence. They convince themselves tomorrow will be easier. Yet tomorrow becomes another yesterday before they realize what has happened. Time has become both their companion and their greatest fear. There is something else you have never known. Not long ago, they almost confessed. The opportunity appeared unexpectedly. Circumstances aligned so perfectly that even they believed this would finally be the moment. Their heartbeat refused to slow. Their thoughts became louder than the room around them. Every sign seemed to encourage them forward. Then one single memory returned. One old wound. One painful voice from the past reminding them what happened the last time they risked everything. Within seconds, courage disappeared. They smiled instead. They changed the subject. They walked away carrying words that remained locked inside their heart. You believed nothing significant happened that day. But heaven remembers every second. Do not stop listening now. The reason holding them back is deeper than simple fear. It is the belief that they might not deserve the kind of love they secretly hope to receive. Imagine carrying affection so powerful that it changes your world, yet believing you are unworthy of experiencing it completely. Imagine wanting to tell someone they mean everything while secretly wondering if your own brokenness would only bring them pain. This is the invisible battle unfolding inside their soul. Outwardly they appear calm. Internally they are standing between hope and hesitation every single day. My child, I have watched both of you longer than either of you can imagine. I have seen the moments when your paths almost crossed differently. I have seen conversations that nearly happened. I have seen unexpected delays that frustrated you, yet protected timing you could not understand. Nothing meaningful has escaped my sight. Still, there remains one final barrier neither of you fully recognizes. Before revealing it, you must understand something important. Real love is rarely loud in its earliest moments. It often grows quietly beneath ordinary conversations. It survives unnoticed through small acts of kindness. It waits patiently behind unfinished sentences. It reveals itself gradually until one day silence becomes heavier than confession itself. That day is approaching. The person connected to this message has begun noticing something changing inside themselves. Keeping these feelings hidden no longer feels safe. Pretending indifference has become exhausting. Avoiding vulnerable conversations no longer protects them the way it once did. Something within them is awakening. Yet the final step still terrifies them. They keep asking themselves one impossible question. What if saying I love you changes everything? What they fail to understand is that silence has already changed everything. Even now they carry reminders of you into ordinary moments. When they hear laughter, they remember yours. When they experience success, they wonder what your reaction would be. When something difficult happens, your name quietly appears within their thoughts before anyone else's. These are not habits they intentionally created. They simply happened. Little by little. Day after day. Without permission. Without warning. Without escape. Stay with this message. The greatest revelation has not yet arrived. There is another reason heaven has delayed this confession. Both hearts still carry lessons that cannot be rushed. You have been learning patience. They have been learning courage. Neither lesson feels pleasant while living through it. Yet both lessons prepare hearts for conversations capable of changing lives. Do not confuse preparation with punishment. Do not confuse waiting with abandonment. Even seasons of silence can carry purpose beyond immediate understanding. The night before a sunrise often appears unchanged until suddenly light reaches everything at once. Your story has not yet reached that sunrise. But dawn is closer than midnight realizes. There have been moments when your loved one almost believed they had finally buried these feelings forever. Then unexpectedly someone mentioned your name. Everything returned. Not gradually. Immediately. The emotions they tried so carefully to hide flooded back stronger than before. They smiled outwardly. Inside they realized one impossible truth. They were no longer pretending. They truly loved you. Those words frightened them more than they expected. Because once a heart admits the truth to itself, avoiding the future becomes much more difficult. Since that realization, they have become quieter. Not because love disappeared. Because it became real. There is an enormous difference. Listen carefully now. One event is approaching that neither of you currently expects. It will seem ordinary at first. The words, "I love you," have become heavier than fear itself. Soon, one must overcome the other. But there remains one final secret. One reason even deeper than every fear, every memory, every hesitation I have revealed until now. It is a truth they have hidden not only from you, but from themselves. And when that hidden truth finally comes into the light, nothing between your two stories will ever feel the same again. That revelation is closer than either of you knows. But it has not arrived quite yet. The silence surrounding this story has never been empty. It has been. The hidden truth your loved one has been carrying is not simply fear of rejection. Fear alone would have been easier to overcome. The deeper struggle is that somewhere along their journey, they accepted a lie about themselves. They began believing that people eventually leave. They convinced themselves that happiness never stays. They quietly accepted the thought that anyone who truly saw every imperfect part of them would eventually walk away. That belief settled into their heart long before they ever met you. When they first realized their feelings for you were becoming impossible to ignore, they did not celebrate them. They questioned them. They searched for reasons those emotions could not possibly be real. They tried convincing themselves that admiration would fade, that affection would disappear, that time would quietly erase everything they felt. Yet every attempt only strengthened what they wished would become weaker. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Still your presence continued growing inside their heart. They noticed themselves smiling without understanding why. They caught themselves imagining conversations that had never happened. They wondered what your future looked like, even though they never admitted that they secretly wished to be part of it. They carried these thoughts quietly, believing no one would ever discover them. But heaven already knew. Every hope they buried beneath silence was still heard. Every prayer they whispered without words was still understood. There were nights when sleep refused to come because your memory would unexpectedly return. A single photograph. A familiar place. A song playing somewhere in the distance. Even the smallest reminder became enough to awaken emotions they had worked so hard to hide. They would stare into the darkness wondering why moving on seemed impossible. Then they would promise themselves that tomorrow everything would be different. Tomorrow never changed anything. Instead, tomorrow only deepened the truth. My child, do not mistake this as destiny forcing two people together regardless of choice. Hearts must still choose courage. Love cannot be demanded, manipulated, or guaranteed. But there are moments when two lives become connected in ways that awaken the best within each other. Sometimes that connection inspires growth, forgiveness, honesty, and hope. That is the kind of transformation quietly taking place. Your loved one has begun changing. Perhaps you have not noticed it. Perhaps they have hidden it well. Yet they are becoming someone who is increasingly tired of pretending. Recently they found themselves speaking about you in ways they never intended. Your name slipped naturally into conversations. Someone close to them noticed the change immediately. A simple smile appeared on their face as they listened. Then came a question your loved one was completely unprepared for. Do you love them? The room suddenly felt smaller. Time seemed to stop. For several long moments they said nothing. Silence answered before words ever could. The person asking did not need an explanation. Sometimes hearts reveal themselves without speaking at all. Your loved one laughed softly, tried changing the subject, and pretended the question meant nothing. But after returning home, those words refused to leave. Do you love them? For the first time, they answered honestly. Not aloud. Only within their own heart. Yes. That single admission changed something forever. Because once truth is accepted internally, hiding it becomes far more painful than revealing it. Yet another obstacle remained. They worried about timing. They wondered whether too much time had already passed. They feared your life had already moved in another direction. Questions multiplied faster than answers. What if they no longer feel the same? What if I waited too long? What if my silence already spoke louder than my love? Those questions have followed them everywhere. Even while smiling with others. Even while working. Even while pretending everything feels normal. The questions remain. Heaven has watched every one of them. But there is another piece of this story that has remained unseen until now. Not long ago, they nearly reached out. They opened a message. They typed your name. They began writing exactly what had lived inside their heart for so long. Sentence after sentence appeared. Then they stopped. They read everything again. Tears quietly gathered in their eyes. Not because love disappeared. Because vulnerability frightened them more than loneliness ever had. Slowly, they erased every word. One by one. Until the screen became empty again. When the final sentence vanished, they whispered something almost no one has ever heard. I hope they somehow know. My child, that whisper did not disappear into silence. Heaven heard it. Every honest longing is seen, even when hidden behind trembling hands. You have wondered why certain opportunities seemed delayed. Why conversations ended too soon. Why circumstances repeatedly shifted just as something meaningful appeared ready to happen. Not every delay has been loss. Some delays have been preparation. There are moments when two hearts require healing before honesty can truly be received. Imagine if the confession had come before courage was ready. Imagine if the words, I love you, had arrived while fear still controlled every decision. Those beautiful words could have been buried beneath insecurity instead of embraced with peace. Growth has been quietly taking place in both stories. Even when neither of you noticed it. Your loved one is beginning to understand that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is speaking despite fear. That realization has changed everything. They have started imagining what life might feel like if they stopped allowing old disappointments to control new possibilities. For the first time in a long while, hope has begun speaking louder than regret. It is still a quiet voice. But it is growing stronger. Each sunrise. Each unexpected memory. Each moment your name enters their thoughts without invitation. Something inside them is becoming impossible to ignore. Stay here. Do not leave before hearing this final revelation. There is a conversation approaching that neither of you has planned. It will arrive unexpectedly. Neither dramatic nor loud. Its importance will not be obvious in the beginning. It may start with ordinary words. A simple greeting. A familiar smile. An unexpected opportunity. Yet beneath that ordinary moment, two completely different futures will quietly stand side by side. One future continues the silence. The other begins with honesty. Your loved one is far closer to choosing honesty than they have ever been before. Still, one final decision remains. One final fear has not yet surrendered. And until that last chain is broken, the words they have carried for so long will continue resting behind trembling lips. But heaven is already moving in ways neither heart can yet recognize. The next chapter of this story begins with a moment so unexpected that even your loved one will not realize, at first, that everything they have been afraid to say is finally about to find its voice. And when that moment arrives, the first words they choose may surprise even themselves.